Welcome to the Stop Over Drinking and Start Living podcast, where high-achieving, goal-oriented rebel women come to learn how to live a vibrant and fulfilling life without requiring alcohol to get through it. No labels, no judgments, no saying you'll never drink again. Just real proven methods to help you stop rebelling against yourself with alcohol so you can drink less and do more. I'm your host, Angela Mascenik. Let's dig in. Welcome to episode 130, What Other People Think. Hello, hello, hello. How are y'all? I'm doing fine. Just got back from a little 2-night camping trip with 2 of my kids, and it's going to be incorporated into this podcast. Just wait for it. It's a good one. But I wanted to let you know that I'm having a free class called Drink Less and Summer More. It's going to be on July 1st and July 6th, and this class is going to be specifically focused on helping you drink less this summer, especially as we are now opening up again after the pandemic. And we might be taking our first vacation in a year and a half, or, having poolside parties or weekend trips or camping or whatever it is. A lot of my clients are a little concerned, and I've heard from a lot of you that maybe you've been doing well, or maybe you haven't been doing well, but you're concerned as things start to open up about how much you're drinking, and you don't want to have another summer of over drinking and feeling foggy and, missing out on some memories and experiences that you want to have, and you want to feel healthy and good this summer. So this is what that class is going to be about. So you should click the link in the show notes and sign up. It's free. It's live. I've got 2 different times and classes to offer you, and you can come ask me questions. I get emails from y'all all the time asking me questions. So if you haven't done one of my classes yet, or even if you have, you should come, because every time you hear me say something, maybe it's just a little bit of a different way. Somebody asked a question that you haven't heard asked before, then you get to hear my response. You will learn something, and you will walk away from that class feeling confident that you don't have to overdrink this summer, that you can have a fun summer feeling good, confident, and not hiding or, staying away from your friends and doing the things that you want to do, and change your relationship with alcohol. So I highly suggest that you click through and sign up, and you'll get all the details and the times and all the good stuff. All right, so this podcast is called What Other People Think, and I'm going to start it off with a little story about part of our weekend. I took Ayla and Arlo. Ayla is my oldest and Arlo is my youngest, camping to my favorite spot, Hanging Rock, and I was looking forward to it. I usually try to take the kids camping 2 or 3 times, and so we get up there and things are great, and it's pretty busy. And Arlo, my youngest, is really good at making friends with total strangers. He just cracks me up. He'll just see somebody his age and just walk up to them and be like, "Hey, do you want to play soccer?" Or, "Hey, do you want to play frisbee?" Or just, "Hey, what's your dog's name?" And they start engaging. So across the street from our campsite, there was another family, and there was a little boy Arlo's age. And so they just became instant friends. And, they were walking the dog and hanging out and all the things. And then later in the day, I had came back to the campsite after going to the bathroom, and he's like, Mommy, can I go on a hike? Can I go out to the lookout tower with him and his family? And I'm like, I don't know. So the dad was standing at the end of their campsite, and I'm like, hey, is that okay with you? And he's like, what are we doing? I'm like, he wants to go on this hike with you. He's like, oh, I really don't mind. And he's like, as long as he can keep up. I'm like, oh yeah, we hike this hike all the time. And he's like, yeah, we'll leave it here about 15 minutes. And so I loaded Arlo up with my backpack and water and snacks, and, went over the rules and everything with him, and off he went. I did not think anything about it. I wasn't worried. I was happy to have alone time with Ayla. He was off with his little friend. I was like, oh, this is so nice, right? Well, so then I talked to my husband, and he's like, oh, I just worry about cliffs and him falling off a cliff. And it was like this boom, like this big bomb that was just trapped. I'm like, great, thanks for putting that thought in my head. And then I started to question my judgment. I didn't even get their full names or their number. he could fall. Will they tell him to stay back from the ledge? There is this big rocky cliff edge up on this hike. Like, I just started swimming in my thoughts. And so I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do that. He's fine. I was okay. And I knew what I was doing. Like, I was taking on somebody else's thoughts. And I'm going to talk about this later in the podcast. But basically what ended up happening was I got so worked up that I'm like, Ayla, I'm going to go see if I can meet them at the bottom of the trail. And I ran out there like halfway up the trail, hoping to catch them on the way back. They were not there. And then my brain really wanted to go to the worst case scenario. They did fall. Where are they? Did somebody get hurt? And then I had to self-coach myself coming back to the campsite. And more on that later. But I waited back at the site. They showed up like 30 minutes later, and they had done a big loop instead of doing it out and back. And I just like kind of laughed and told them my worries and all this. But next time I will get their number, just so y'all know. So I am tying this into the podcast episode, to just hold on. All right. So what other people think. What other people think. So I coach on this topic quite frequently in my Stop Over Drinking and Start Living program. And there's 2 subtopics under this one topic of what other people think that I want to explore with you here today. The first, and by far the most common, is around what other people will think when you don't drink during a social event or on vacation or funeral, or it's just a Tuesday night. Okay. So we have thoughts like this, and I'm going to read some of them too, but they all fall under the category of worrying about what other people might think. So these are some of them. They will think I'm boring. They will think she doesn't want to have fun anymore. They will think she must have a drinking problem. They will think she's always doing the extreme. They will think she's going to push her agenda. Okay, does that resonate with y'all? Have you had those thoughts, especially if you're thinking about not drinking or limiting how much you're drinking going into a social event? So any thought that you imagine someone might have about you that you worry about, these thoughts are typically sound judgmental or negative. So remember, our brain's default programming is to think negatively. Nothing has gone wrong. But when you worry about what other people might think, that is a huge waste of time, especially when you're thinking that they're going to be thinking negatively about you. Okay? First of all, other people's thoughts ain't none of your business. I'm just kind of singing Salt and Pepper, ain't none of your business in my head, right? They're allowed to have their thoughts. The internal thoughts that they keep inside of their heads that they haven't said out loud are literally none of your business. Okay? So you spending any time worrying about what they might think is going to distract you from deciding how you want to think. I'm going to read that again. So you spending any time worrying about what they might think is going to distract you from you deciding how you want to think about yourself. Your thoughts are the most important thing to pay attention to. So if you worry and have thoughts like they will judge me or they will think I'm boring, just notice that and ask yourself, what am I thinking of me? Do I think I'm boring? Am I judging myself? And if you think you are boring or if you're judging yourself, well, the good news here is that you can change that. Remember, the only thoughts we have the power to change are our own. The only thoughts we have the power to change are our own. So if you show up to a social event not worried what other people are thinking about you, and you walk in thinking you're going to have the best time and you're excited to see the people and catch up and you are not worried about what they are thinking, how do you think those people will perceive you? Oh, she's fun. She's always in such a good mood. She's such a great conversationalist, right? Now imagine you show up all awkward and worried about what other people are going to be thinking of you. You might be quiet. You might be reserved. You might lie and make up some excuse as to why you might not be drinking. Or worse, you might end up drinking way more than you had planned to. Now, how do you think you'll be perceived when you show up this way? Gosh, she was quiet. Something's bothering her. It looks like she's not having any fun now that she's not drinking. Or the worst, she really drinks a lot, right? Your energy will show up externally whether you realize it or not. I love it when people tell me, well, I was thinking all those things, but I never said them out loud. You don't have to, sister. They can sense what you are feeling without you having to open your mouth. All right. Now, this doesn't mean that you can totally give up on caring about what other people think or how they might perceive you. This is not what I'm saying. Please don't misuse this advice I'm sharing with you, okay? What I'm referring to is when you waste time and mental energy thinking people might think bad things about you because of what you do or don't do. People are going to have thoughts no matter what you do. Drinking or not drinking, say what you feel or don't. They're going to have thoughts. Let them. You can't control what they think. You can only control what you think. Make sure you like your thoughts about you, and it will all be good, I promise. So now the second part of this is the other area where people have thoughts that they share out loud. Okay, so under what people think, what other people think, and they share it out loud. This is the second part. So they say something, and then you take that on to be the truth. So for example, someone might say out loud, gosh, you're going to be bored not drinking tonight. Or, oh, I can't imagine not drinking. That would be so boring. I've been known to say that before. And then you end up believing them. You think, I'm boring. And you're right, it will be boring. This is what I refer to as taking on other people's thoughts. They say something, you believe it, and then you change course. Now, remember the story I told you about camping this weekend? I told you I'd get back to it. So I wasn't thinking anything dangerous when I let Arlo go hiking with that family. I felt like I had made a good decision. No worries. I wasn't really even thinking about it until I talked to my husband, and he said, I just worry about cliffs and him falling off. Text me as soon as he gets home. Well, I took on that thought as if it were true. Why didn't I think of that? There are huge cliffs and areas that could tumble down to his death from. All this worry set in. So much worry that I left my other child alone at the campsite with a fire going to hike out to see if I could catch them on the return. I hiked out like 20 minutes in one direction and finally turned back. Got myself into such a mental tizzy, I had to self-coach myself the whole way back. And then I started worrying about my other child that I had left alone at the campsite, y'all. Or I could have fallen and gotten hurt and I didn't have any water. No one knew where I was, right? That was also what was happening in my head. Have you ever done this? Maybe you're in a heated discussion with your spouse or coworker and they share their thoughts with you, and you either need to go on the defensive to prove what they are saying isn't true, or, like in my situation, you believe what they said, right? I'm sure a lot of you are nodding your head. Yes, yes, yes. This is what I want you to hear about this. Those people are having thoughts, and they are just sharing them out loud. It doesn't mean that they are true or false. They are just sentences, just like you have in your head, that aren't true or false. Okay? And you don't have to take them on or disprove them or believe them if you don't want to. I wonder if you could just pause and recognize that they are having thoughts, and you get to decide what you want to believe here. That will also save you a lot of time and anguish and frustration. Imagine the fights that you would just end if other people could just say something and we don't make it mean anything. I know this might seem harder to comprehend, but just try it. The next time someone says something to you that you don't agree with or you don't think is true, what if you just said, all right, or thanks for sharing your thoughts, and didn't believe them, or go out to prove them wrong? How much mental energy would you save and then play it out? And how would that help you drink less? Okay? So imagine you didn't have any of the defensiveness or the back and forth, right? And you didn't feel the frustration, all of that, or the worry come from that, and you didn't do anything. Like nothing changed, right? All of that time, you're spending out, taking actions that don't serve you, like I did this weekend. I ended up doing a 3-mile hike and leaving my other kid alone and worrying for an hour. All because I took on that thought that he could fall off a cliff, right? So that is what I'm talking about, is I took that thought on as it could be true, and that ended up changing my experience that I had for an hour, okay? Taking on other people's thoughts, unless they serve you, isn't really helpful. Again, your thoughts are the ones that you should pay attention to. So the big takeaway, stop worrying about what other people might be thinking of you. And if you insist on spending your time thinking about what other people might think, then decide to think that everyone loves you and thinks that you're amazing, okay? Because you are. Now you just need to work on thinking that about you, my friend. You are amazing, you are capable, and you get to decide how you show up in your life. And the more authentically you can do that as yourself and follow through on the plans and goals that you have and say what you feel, then you're going to drink less and you're going to move forward in the life that you want to, and you'll feel better. And you'll create more amazing things from that place. So stop worrying about what other people are thinking and go out there and do your own thing. All right? And don't forget to sign up for the Drink Less and Summer More free class that I'm teaching on July 1st and July 6th. We'll talk to you next week. Bye for now.